Hey everyone, welcome back to the Roofr Masterclass. It's Nic here from Roofr, and I'm joined by Matt Danskin from Building Experts Institute. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back here.
Super excited for this. This is back by popular demand. We had a lot of people shout out from the last one, wanting to hear a little bit more, connecting the inspection process that we went over in part one to the sales process. So really excited to have you back on, chat a little bit more. For those that are in the audience, thank you for joining. If you guys are looking for part one and haven't seen it yet, you can check it out on our Roofr YouTube. So roofr.com/ or youtube.com/Roofr. Or even better, if you're in your Roofr account and you're ordering measurements, doing proposals using the CRM, bottom left part of the screen, it says Help Center. You click on that. There's where all our podcasts are, help articles, masterclasses, everything there. So a lot of stuff there to watch. So please let us know. But we got a lot of good views on the last one. Excited to jump into this. So Matt, before we get started, why don't you give a quick little intro on you for anybody who don't know or should know who you are.
Sure. So I've been in the construction industry most of my life, doing new builds, remodels, additions, all that sort of stuff. Got into roofing years and years ago, and did pretty well with that. I kind of made a name for myself with the referral relationships with insurance agent stuff. For the last 5 years, I've been teaching restoration referral system and doing that with hundreds of contractors across the country. At the same time, I've been doing some building consulting. So different public adjusters have reached out to me to do inspections for them. And because they saw the way that I was doing them for myself. And so we've done tens of millions of dollars of claims, inspections there. And with Building Experts Institute, about a year ago, myself, Matt Mulholland, and John Tillman teamed up to create kind of a masterclass style training where it's really highly produced. It's led by experts at whatever their specific thing is. And we just go really, really deep into whatever topic it is. So rather than it being, I love this type of format where it's, kind of a webinar type of deal, but it's categorized. It's a whole curriculum that we're building out with that. So that's my quick intro.
I love it. And I know you and Matt pretty well. We see each other at events all the time. And I've been lucky enough to see a little bit of your videos here and there. And if anybody's interested in any of this stuff, or whether it's that referral generation for inspections, for Xactimate supplementing and stuff like that, the amount of stuff that you have and how detailed it goes into, it's perfect for a growing sales team to really help them learn. Do you guys do in person as well, or is it all like through the masterclass video?
So for Building Experts Institute, all of the courses that we have are online based, and that's some of the kind of beauty of it. We are actually planning out right now some live events that we're going to do in about a dozen cities across the country here in the next 6 months. So be on the lookout for that. But they can check us out. buildingexperts.institute is where we've got all the information about those courses, and of course where we'll have the live events announced there too.
That's awesome. Super valuable. And we know how valuable it is here because we're doing a part two. It was cool. That last masterclass, we were near the end and questions were pouring in. And one of the comments was just like, we need a part two. So,
I think I get carried away. And so you can go so deep in just any part of this. And so we didn't talk as much about the connecting the sales aspect of it. And we talked more about just like what that inspection process is. So I think for anybody watching this, that is going to be a helpful piece to do. But I dropped the ball and got too into what we were talking about.
No, it was super interesting. I as a guy who's been in roofing his entire life and prided himself on the way that I did inspections and stuff in the past, I learned a lot from it. And it's really cool to kind of open up your eyes to see what the other options are and how to do it kind of clean. And one of the biggest highlights that I had from the last one was just literally having a process, just like you have a sales process, you have a a business process, a business, all that stuff, having a process for the inspections going left to right, up and down, was one thing that just stuck with me because it just makes more sense. It just, now your photos are in order, everything's easy to find, and it really opens that up so that you can kind of point to anything that you need to throughout that process.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely get into a little bit more of that stuff today, the process in sales, process of inspection, stuff like that, and how to kind of connect everything into that sales funnel. Just for everybody who's in the audience there, that chat there that's over on your screen, please feel free to put in some questions. We'll be trying to answer them as we go along. If not, we'll have some at the end to answer. And if you do have any questions, you can email myself there at nic@roofr.com, or Matt, what's your email if they want to reach out to you?
Yeah, just Matt, M-A-T-T, at buildingexperts.institute.
Awesome. So let's just do a quick recap on what we talked about last time, and what is and keep in mind too, like we talked to a large amount of roofers from both restoration and retail. I definitely know this, but someone who might just be joining in might not see the value and the importance of a thorough inspection. Can you give us a quick breakdown on like why this is so important to add it into your process as you're growing your company?
I think like any business process, it's going to be tough for you to diagnose problems. It's going to be tough for you to see growth, see improvement in things unless you have consistency. So if you've got everybody on the team doing different inspections, you have everybody doing different inspections every time they go out. It's really tough to identify where are the problems that we're having, what are the successes that we're having. Let's replicate those things. So I think just from a business process aspect, you've got to get on the same page. And, we've got our protocol, we've got here's how we do it, which, I recommend use that. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be any type of process that everybody's following and doing that consistently. The reasons and, kind of what we're getting into this for doing that really, really good inspection is of course to sell the roof, right? So many times the customer, if you're door knocking or any type of cold calling, they don't necessarily know that they need the product that you're selling. And so you really have to start from a basis of, we need to establish that you do need this thing. And the best way that I've ever seen to establish that is not by talking, it's by taking photos. It's by sharing with them, showing them what's going on. So they actually see it for themselves and explaining what that is in your inspection. The inspection also is frankly what gets the neighbors. That's what impresses the customer so much, that builds so much confidence and trust with that customer, that they want to show it off to they want to get their neighbors involved. They want everybody to be able to take advantage of this. And really it gets in the context of an insurance restoration deal, it gets the insurance approval. And that may be something you're sending to the carrier ahead of time. It may be something that you're giving to the adjuster. It may be something that you're using to supplement. But the insurance company, even if they're the best insurance company out there and really want to indemnify their policyholders, they just can't do it. They can't just open their checkbook without some kind of verification of what's actually going on. And so if you can leave that up to their adjusters, if you want to, I would recommend instead doing that piece of it and making sure that that's done well, whether their adjuster is going to do that piece well or not.
Yeah, and it's a big thing. Like we talk at Roofr to all different sizes and stages of companies. And whether you're a company that's existing and knows how they do inspections and stuff, it's always good to look at this at fresh eyes, because I even say this with your sales process, that what you have is gotten you where you are right now. And we're not saying reinvent the wheel here. Like, you have that wheel, maybe it's got wood spokes on it. We're just looking to update those into steel spokes. That same process, just update it into something that's a little bit more foolproof and have everything there. And if you're a new company out there, I just got off a demo about 25 minutes ago, half an hour ago now, talking to a customer who is a restoration company who's in Colorado and just starting out. And one of the things I said, well, when you're just starting out, what are your plans to kind of set yourself apart from the companies that are been in there for 20 years that you're competing against? How are you going to win those jobs? And he said, by like honesty and integrity. And I was like, what does that mean to you? He said, well, I'm going to do a good inspection. I was like, well, I got a masterclass starting in half an hour that you should be in. But having that stuff there is going to separate yourself from the competition, doing it properly, working with the carriers to show them what the value is, why I'm supplementing, why this is a claim, but also just for that referral system, like you said, you're going to grow your company and you're going to stand apart, especially if you're a brand new company. You need something to separate yourself from the competition, and this is a sure way to do it.
So one of the things, as I was, kind of preparing to talk about this, that I thought was really important for us to cover is really just part of the problem that I see in the marketplace is so many guys take shortcuts and they rush things and they skip things in their inspection because they feel like, especially right after a storm, right? Like you just got smashed with a big storm. Everybody's buying a roof, right? Like there's all these customers. I need to get to as many of them as I possibly can. And so they go run around and they do a really, really crappy inspection for 15 people that day. Right. And they end up, after all the dust is settled, they end up actually getting to build and collect on like 3 of those 15. Right. Because there was no trust built. The customer, I just talked to a client of mine yesterday who they do about 25 million a year. And they just got a storm in their market, and their sales guy, who's done fairly well, went out and he did 7 inspections and they all had damage, and he signed 1 deal. Right. And he's going to have to go do a bunch more work if he's closing 1 out of 7. Right. That's a lot of roofs to inspect. That's a lot of doors to knock. That's a lot of customers to talk to get 1 sale. And if you can slow yourself down and say, you know what, maybe I'll get to those, maybe I won't. But I'm gonna take this one customer. I'm gonna do a great inspection for him. That solidifies so much with the customer, where they go, this person's investing time into me. They're not trying to rush me through this thing. They're doing the work. They're professionals. It looks like they know what they're doing. Looks like they got little tools going on, all that sort of stuff, right? Like they're playing the part. That carries so much weight, where you're not having to speak it. They're seeing it. They're picking up on it. And so I think slowing down, doing the process, taking your time with it, you're going to end up, and you're probably not going to be able to do 15 in a day. But, right after a storm, you might get 9 in a day. But I bet you that you get to actually close and build and collect on more of those 9 than you would have had you spread yourself thinner onto 15 jobs.
Yeah.
And that's just what I see, is just kind of putting numbers to it, looking at it in real terms. That's what it is you're doing so much more work because you won't slow yourself down and just do this part properly.
Yeah, it becomes quality over quantity there, right? Like you want to make sure that you're making the most out of your time, because your time is money. You don't want to be running around with your chicken, like with their head cut off like a chicken, trying to find everything in there. And the other side, like punishment that you're going to get from that, is if you're running around and trying to catch everything after a storm and just hoping that something falls in your lap, you're also just building bad habits. And then when the dust settles, you got time you got to try to fix everything, and you're starting back at square one. So it's good to set yourself apart and make sure that you're doing your process each and every time. Make sure your team is unified on that, and making sure that you're getting it done so that you're making the most out of every inspection, because each one of those customers has a cost per acquisition. And if you have a negative interaction with one of them, it's going to be like COVID, like R0. It's going to multiply throughout that. You're not going to get that referral. So you're going to need that stuff back there. So why don't we dive into a little bit more on how to turn these fantastic inspections that you showed us how to do in part one into a sales process, what would be your first step after taking those photos all down?
So if you don't mind, let me actually back up
Yeah.
before the inspection. I think is a really critical piece of it. Obviously people are generating their business in all sorts of different ways. Whether that's a referral from an insurance agent or a door knock or an online lead or whatever it is, being able to step into that, understanding what that customer's mindset is. So if you're doing one of those more cold approaches, you need to understand that customer immediately doesn't trust you, right? There are bad actors in our industry. There are bad actors that knock on doors to sell all sorts of different stuff. There are bad guys out there. And I'm going to assume if you're going through and doing education and stuff like this, you're probably not one of those guys. But you don't want to pay the price for getting confused as one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And so think about that, have that in your mindset before you even show up. And so, think about your potential customer and their entire neighborhood watching you ahead of time. And so they are watching how fast you drive through their neighborhood. They're watching where you park your vehicle. They're watching if you sit in your truck for 20 minutes or if you hop right out. Something I think Chuck Tokey taught me, which I was like, oh yeah, that's super obvious now that he mentioned it. So shout out to Chuck. They're watching how you're dressed, like how you're presenting yourself. If you've got truck wraps and all that sort of stuff, great. They're watching, does this person, I'm a big fan of actually having a ladder, like a ladder rack and an extension ladder and all that sort of stuff. I know a lot of people don't, and that's fine. There's, plenty of different ways to skin that cat, but they're making sure that you actually look like someone who is doing this job. You're not some, used car salesman that, hail fell and you decided to be a roofer last week, right? This is coming from somebody that used to sell used cars years ago, right? So I can say that. So, but they're looking for red flags, right? Of like, is this person a scammer? Do I need to call, do I need to go complain on Nextdoor about this person running around our neighborhood and almost hit my kid on their bike or whatever it is? Think through those little bitty interactions, which none of those things that I just mentioned are all that hard.
No.
Right. But if you're paying attention to those details, again, it's going to mean that you're closing more deals. You're having to do less work for the amount of deals that you're closing.
The respect there too is huge. Like little things, like you mentioned, all that stuff is great. But one thing that I learned from my door knocking days, it was just so big, is walk on the pavement and walk on the walkway. Don't walk on the grass. Something as simple as that. Don't take that shortcut. Go the long way and show that you have respect. It's going to set that first interaction on the right foot. So I love that you mentioned all those other things too.
Yeah. And they're, some of the other things on here, they're going to, and I've noticed myself doing this too. Maybe I'm just, more intentional about it than most consumers, but they'll watch, like I've seen roofers that don't know how to carry their ladder, right? Like it's the fourth time they've ever picked this thing up and it's awkward and weird and whatever. And they can't find their tools, right? Like, they don't have their stuff together. Go to the parking lot down the street or whatever, get your stuff figured out. Right. And even if you're brand new, great. Welcome to the industry. You've found an amazing thing. Go to the parking lot at the park and go practice getting your ladder in and out. As silly and stupid as that is, right? Make sure that you have all your tools in the morning so that you can just grab your tool bag, slap it around your waist, and you're good to go. Pay attention to how carefully you set your ladder against the house, right? And if you've got protection stuff, there's all sorts of stuff to manage that. Don't just go out there, wham, slam this. Again, respecting your customer and their property and all that sort of stuff. People are looking at all these little details to figure out, can I trust this person? Do I want them on my roof? Do I want to work with this person? And so there's the adage, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So they're looking for, and that's not always 100% true, right? You
Yeah.
could do great at all this and then go botch their roof, or vice versa. But people are going to use the little hints that they can pick up to make their best educated decision. And so if they see that you're botching this stuff, they're going to assume you're probably going to botch my roof too. I don't want anything to do with you. You're probably going to mess up my claim, mess up the construction, do all that sort of stuff. But if you're respecting my property, you're very intentional about how you do all these things, that's probably how you're going to be with working with my insurance carrier, with constructing my roof, with the whole thing. And so just be very intentional and pay attention to those little details. I think those make those help with the sale. I know they're not conversational there, but they are feeding into that sales process for sure. So if you haven't seen the inspection process, go back to part 1, watch the inspection process. So we won't fill this one up with all those details. But when you've completed your inspection, that inspection, what I love about it is that you can't fudge it. Mm-hmm. You can't really, you can take photos from the right angle or whatever to make something more pronounced or less pronounced, but until AI gets there, you can't just generate damage on their roof that's not actually there. And so while you may go up there and be super nice and look professional and all this sort of stuff, they're still going to have a little bit of a trouble trusting you. So I'm from Missouri originally, the show me state. There's nothing that you can do to build trust more than just showing them this is what it is and explain what these things are. I think that's one thing as a roofing contractor, or restoration or whatever type of work you're doing, you can kind of get used to what this damage is, what these things are, because you see it every single day. This is their most valuable asset, and they just found out that it has damage, right? This is you walking in to let somebody know that somebody just wrecked into their car, right? Is like, oh man, here's what happened. Here's what this looks like. And some of it may, if you're looking at hail damage, some customers get more or less excited about seeing hail damage on their shingles. There's some people that are like, oh my gosh, what do we need to do? Let's file a claim right now, right? And you'll have people be like, oh, what's the big deal? Yeah. Right. And you're like, this is 3-inch hail. This is, this thing smoked or whatever. And they're like, yeah, whatever. Like, is it leaking? No, I'm good. Mm-hmm. Right. So we got, I kicked the wire from my camera there.
There we go.
And I'm back. All right. Minor technical difficulty. So, I think you need to walk through and explain the consequences of that damage. You need to look through, like I said, especially with hail, and dumb it down, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at this hail damage and I say, oh yeah, there's rapid degranulation, is that customer going to know what that is or care what that is? Probably not. But when you tell them this roof is expected to last for about 30 years, you told me it's about 10 years old. Well, it's probably only going to last for about another 5 years before this is just worn completely through. Now that the hail has broken the fiberglass matting, the asphalt that makes up most of the body of that shingle is going to heat and cool and essentially melt away. And you're going to be left with nothing but that fiberglass matting, and the water isn't going to shed away. The water is going to go inside your house. Water inside house, bad. Water outside house, good. Right. Like dumb it down so much that they, I make it laughable, right? Like water inside house, bad. And they'll go, yeah. Water inside house is bad. And, so when you do that, and you can do that even quicker with the wind, you don't have to go through all the steps of this thing, heating and cooling and breaking down over the next few years. So and let them know, here's the situation that you're in, is your home insurance policy probably covers this type of damage. Be careful as a contractor, not telling people what their policy does and does not cover. Yeah. But you can say things like, most insurance companies policies will cover for this type of damage. Your policy, check your policy, talk to your agent to, see if you have that type of coverage. Most of them do. And they're going to cover it because the storm has just happened. There's a window of time, and that can vary based on where you're at and what your policy is, all that. There's a window of time that you have to let your insurance company know, hey, our roof is damaged. You guys owe for that. If you wait until after that window of time is over and the shingle starts breaking down and the water is starting to get into your house now, and you've got a real big problem and it's urgent, the insurance company is going to say, no, that hailstorm was 3 years ago. That's on you. And we've got financing programs. We can take care of you there if that's the way you want to do it. But fortunately, you got that 10-year-old roof. You're able to reset the timer on it, get a brand new roof. You get to pick out whatever color you want. We're going to make this thing awesome. And all you're going to be responsible for typically is your insurance deductible and any upgrades you choose to add onto your roof.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the type of conversation that just leads that customer along to saying, you know what, this makes sense. This is what we need to do without creating that resistance. Now, again, all of those things, those red flags that we talked about that you can potentially be bringing up, you've got to be careful about not bringing those up. You got to also, talk to the customer about their questions and their concerns and all that sort of stuff. But it's, kind of a real quick. So I've been talking. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love that because there's different types of homeowners coming to you. And if you're going door to door and kind of like creating that customer, it's completely different too. But there's customers that are going to come to you and you have to match their urgency because it's leaking and this is the end of the world to them. And those people, it's important to address them in that same respectful manner and being like, hey, this is the reason why. Here are the photos to show what happened. So that's where the inspection works there too. But when you're talking about a difference between wind and hail damage, that's where things get a little bit interesting. You're not having the traditional homeowner who is panicked and urgent on there. You might be teaching them about this and trying to force some urgency in a respectful manner and truthful manner towards them. So educating them on that process, which is super important, talking about what's next and talking about like, I love that how you're talking about like, here's the window in time, but even talking about what I used to do a lot is mention, all right, Mrs. Jones, your roof's not leaking now. And I know that you're missing a couple of shingles because where I'm from, it's more wind damage than hail. Mm-hmm. And I understand you're missing a bunch of shingles, but there's a lot of crease shingles here, meaning that they've been flapping for a while. And I know you don't see any leaking now, but I could already show in these photos, there's some weathered plywood. Now, weathered plywood doesn't happen unless it's facing the weather. So that's typically what that roof is for. And you probably already have some leaking, but don't notice it yet. And trying to create that urgency by educating them on what happens. Like, hey, first your shingles go, then your plywood, then your insulation, then your drywall, and that's when you see it. So having that opening there and walking them through piece by piece is super important. So having a process set up for each type of those ICPs or your ideal customer profiles is super important. Is it a retail bid? Is it someone who's stuck with urgency and there's leaking? And is it someone that you need to build that urgency and educate with? So I love that you have all those different options there.
Yeah. There's parts of, I guess, with your customer, they're going to need to, like we talked about, be aware of their need for your service. Mm-hmm. They're going to need to be confident that you are competent to provide that service to them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's where some of the professionalism comes in. I know I've dealt with situations where there were other roofers out before I was out. And, I do my 45-minute long inspection and I take 140 photos and they go, oh, the other guy like propped his ladder up, looked up there. He didn't even get on the roof. He just saw, yep, there's hail and told me to file a claim. Right. And who do you think the customer chose? Right. In those instances, right. Like it's kind of a no brainer. And that's the guy that's trying to get as many customers as he can that day. And he's wasting time. He's, I guess
Yeah.
only wasting 5 minutes at a time, but you're wasting those opportunities. And so being able to do that, but they need to believe that they can trust you. So even if you know how to roof, you know how to get the insurance company to pay for it, all that sort of stuff, this is their home, and it's their finances. Their insurance companies, their insurance policy is a financial instrument.
Mm-hmm.
This is their money and their house. These are, aside from their children, this is the most important stuff that you could possibly be dealing with. And so don't take that for granted, just thinking, I'm out here on a roof, I'm chalking stuff, whatever. They're going to buy this thing. They're signing a contract. Like, you have their livelihood to a pretty scary extent in your hands. And so if you drop the ball, you're dropping the ball for those people in a really, really big way. So I think that's an important thing to think about. And also that's what's in the customer's head while you're talking to them nonchalant about this thing that you do every single day. This is a big deal for these people.
Ultimately, too, like at that point, that's such a great point that you brought up. But at that point, if they don't have it in their head yet, they will when they see that 5-figure price tag. And whatever you did before that is going to lead to what that perception is after that. So that's going to allow that $20,000, $30,000, $15,000 price tag to not hurt as much as if you did all those things that you said before and treated them with respect throughout that entire process. Feel a lot better.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a great point. If you're doing your inspection and, you're taking, like the guy that did actually inspected my roof, which was really fun. The guy that inspected my roof took 4 photos, called his boss, and his boss told him that we got a good shot at getting it approved. That guy, based on the way he did his entire interaction, his entire inspection, everything, it seems like it's not a very big deal, right? Mm-hmm. And so we never got to the point that he's presenting me with a price, but had he presented me with a $15,000, $20,000 price tag, I would have gone, oh, this is actually a big deal, right? I love that, that mismatch. So if only they had some kind of instant estimator to help show them. Yeah. So it, ultimately, if they have doubt in any of those areas, they're going to hit the brakes. Yeah. Right. You don't have to be a one call close type of a thing or whatever. It helps with efficiency if you can. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, people are going to hit the brakes, and then they're going to start looking at options. They're going to have other people come out. They're going to get other people's opinions. They might get their insurance adjuster's opinion that tells them, oh, no, you just have hail damage. You don't need to, they might talk to their neighbor who's also making a bad decision. Mm-hmm. There's all sorts of things that can go sideways when they hit the brakes. Not that you're not going to get some of those deals, but you're certainly going to lose some of them if you're creating that doubt, if you're not checking each of those boxes.
Yeah. And that respect goes a long way, both ways on that. So that's awesome. So on that next step there, so you've built up that trust. You've shown that your professionalism from the get-go, and you talked to them like a human and educated them. What is your next step there?
So for me, really, I want to give all this information to the homeowner. I like giving them like a link to the inspection before we even do our inspection. It can be a report that you give or in your proposal that you give the customer after the fact. I would like for them to submit that to their carrier when they file the claim.
Nice.
And, the insurance company is less likely to ignore those photos initially if it's sent by the homeowner than if it's sent by the contractor. Eventually, they may look at yours if you're the contractor sending them in. But on the front end, if you have an actual adjuster and not a ladder now type of inspector, they will actually look through those photos, and they will actually already kind of come to the conclusion, there is damage here. I'm going to be going out and buying this roof. I need to go out and, they still have to go through their motions for the most part. But they're going to be going out there with the mindset. So you're selling this adjuster on buying the roof. Mm-hmm. And again, that's further with the homeowner kind of putting it to them of, I am a professional. I have all my ducks in a row. I know what photos I need to take. I know what we need to do with them, so that we can get this thing taken care of. If people are looking for an expert, they want somebody that already knows how this thing is going to go. This is an unfamiliar process for them. So if you just go, hey, this is next step, this is next step, this is next step, that's going to result in them having a higher confidence. One of the things we kind of completely skipped over, but I realized was in my notes, is that salesperson's confidence.
Yeah.
And
you just kind of mentioned it right there with I think and next steps. And this is, so those two statements, they're going, I think that this could be covered versus insurance, or this is the next step. Right there, there's two different confidence levels that you can display off the bat. So sorry for cutting you off. But
yeah. And, and some of the confidence and all that sort of stuff you can fake, or you can manufacture by the words that you're choosing to use. But some of it is something you can't BS. You can't produce it. You need to be confident that hail did actually fall at this address and cause damage, and this roof is going to get replaced, and it's going to go the way that you're saying that it's going to go. You 100%. Need to actually have that confidence. And if you do a thorough inspection and you're looking at all the collateral, you're looking at all the things close up, you're documenting all this stuff, that is going to build your own confidence to be able to tell that customer, this is what I saw, this is what we can expect going forward. Press hard, 3 copies. I'm just kidding. Because we're signing on digital contracts now. But that dates me a little bit.
You'd be shocked. It does not date you because of the amount of people that still do that. The white, the pink, and the yellow. It's always there. Like I see it in the wild still. It's the press hard one. It's funny. Jen, who is because she's in this room and the audience might not know. We did a podcast with her talking about getting her roof done because she came into Roofr and then she needed her roof done. So we went through all that, which is great. And Jen, I don't know if you can message in the chat. It was this week or late last week. She was getting her garage done as well. And I was like, so what were the prices? And I was like, was it written on a napkin? And she said, oh God. And it was literally written on a business card. Like he didn't have his napkin or his 3-piece carbonite paper. So he wrote on a business card. But like it still happens. And unfortunately, Jen's got it twice from 2 different roofers. But it's
Jen, next time, here's what you do is you look up clients of Roofr in your area. That's all I'm saying. But hopefully it doesn't leak.
Yeah, no, it's all good there. But so continue with the 3-piece carbonite and how you can open that up.
Just leading that customer to the point of, we're signing this deal, we're doing this thing. Should they have any questions? Should they have objections of like, oh, how is this thing going to be done? Or, what's wrong with this? This, seems fine. You've got that inspection to draw back on. You've got that as your backstop. We do a inspection course in BEI. And, a lot of it is just very process oriented. It's not really, we don't really get into the sales side of things with BEI. It's more just the technical stuff. But it's, here's all the stages of it. Here's the photos that you're taking. Here's why you're doing. Here's how to accurately identify it, all that sort of stuff. But if you can take that that whole inspection and even pair it together with a master document is something that we're kind of putting into our next course that we've got coming out on documentation. And this can be done through your proposals tool, is a really important thing for this customer to see, for their adjuster to see, is you can have things like boilerplate information of, this is what engineers have determined is damage. This is what that damage looks like on an asphalt shingle roof and hail damage, right? Or, you figure out what those variables are. So you'd have kind of your own template for each one of those. Here's what engineers have determined. Here's their, you're citing all these things. Here's what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And right next to it, here's your roof. This is what we found. And you see how those things look just alike. And so it's not just me who makes a commission when you buy a roof from me telling you that you have hail damage. This is the textbook definition of hail damage. And this is your hail damage right next to it. To further build that credibility. And again, that helps the customer confidently make a decision, but it's also something that puts the insurance company in a position where they say, you've already established the definition of damage, which interestingly is not defined in policies almost ever. You've defined what this damage is in a very reasonable way, very scientific way. And so if they want to define damage differently, they're going to have to out nerd you on some of that stuff, which, with the documents that we've put together, they're going to have a hard time out nerding you.
And that's important too, is becoming that expert and like having something side by side with that and showing them and getting buy-in on that first image, and then presenting their image right after that. It's not only making you the expert, but it's going back to what you said before. It's dumbing it down in a smart way. So you're getting that verbal confirmation, and then you're turning that into a full understanding. And ultimately, when you're working with a lot of these policies, you need that homeowner on your side. They're the policy holder. So you making them into experts as well is going to go a long, long way with it.
Yeah. So if the adjuster wants to go tell them a different story, they're going to go, no. I already learned this. Right.
Yes.
And, I will, I guess give one word of warning about that. Is it doing a process like that won't allow you to BS claims that shouldn't be claims and say that something that is not hail is hail.
Yeah.
Or something that is not wind is wind. If you're vandalizing roofs, this is not going to go well for you. So with that disclaimer out there, but that's the beauty of it, is ultimately insurance companies aren't the bad guys, right? Like they're not trying to, just pull one over all the time. I would say, there's a few bad eggs out there, just like there are on the contractor side of the things. But you need to show up on your side of it and do things the right way, and things go so much easier for everybody involved.
Yeah, and it's going back to that respect thing. If you show that carrier the respect, and as well, there are bad actors out there, but don't try to push something through that's not. Have that honest conversation. If we go back to part one, what you talked about too is coming down off that ladder and just being like, hey, Mrs. Jones, your roof is fine. It'll be fine for another couple of years, but here's the inspection report that I created for you. Here's my contact information. If you need anything else, let me know. Now you got the referrals. You're growing that recommendation list, and better believe that Mrs. Jones is calling you next time.
Oh yeah, the no damage inspections, we actually use that in restoration referral system. I love leveraging those with their insurance agents, because now you're the roofer who told their customer that they don't need to file a claim.
Yeah.
And you've instantly built so much more trust than anybody that's walked into their door with donuts. But if you do that no damage inspection, especially in a lot of markets, it's not a matter of whether or not they will have damage. It's just when. Right. And so you need to pay attention to those things. You need to, keep on that. But I've had the inspections where we got hit a month later, and then the adjuster tries to tell me that it's old damage.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I have timestamped photos from a month ago, and here's that pipe boot, and here's the hail hit that wasn't there in the older photos. So we actually we were talking before the show. I did a pre-storm inspection, or ran around the house, took about 50 photos at my parents' house about 30 minutes before the tornado hit. And then took the photos, an hour after the tornado or the next day. And you can see, the night and day difference.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
With so you have that presentation, you've walked them through everything, you've educated the client and created them as an expert. Now, what's the next step for you?
I mean, at that point, your deal is signed. You've set everything up properly for the adjustment. You've, educated your customers so that they are on your side with this thing. You're pretty well done. The whole documentation can obviously go further than your inspection. It can go throughout your build. It can go after your completion, all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't categorize that as inspection, but definitely an important part of the photo documentation.
Do you have a process for like during the builds for any change orders, number one, and then also post build for like the final cleanup? If you're a production manager going around making sure your crews are cleaning up, is that something that you focus on as well?
We don't have a course on that yet. I can tell you what I did myself as a contractor with some of the crews that I worked with that worked really well. And there's also things that I've picked up from other clients and all that sort of stuff over the years. One of the things is I compensated my roofing crew for taking photos. And my rule was, I need to have these 10 photos. I got my list of 10 photos, and I need to have 50 photos overall. And here, at least, right? And I'd set them up with, a photo documentation tool. And their MO was, when you pull up, like when you're back, they're getting ready to back up the truck, have the guy that's right in the passenger seat hop out and start taking photos. And I have a timestamp. I know exactly when you showed up. So if you were late, I know it. If you were early, I know it, right? Like whatever it is, like it's just going to be what it is. But also you're taking a photo of that driveway before you back your trailer up onto it, right? Because if it was already cracked, we want to know. I don't want you to have to pay for a driveway. I don't want me to have to pay for a driveway. So take that photo. I want you to go around the elevations of the home and, just take a quick lap. You don't even have to break stride as you're doing this. Take a photo of that broken concrete frog in the front that was already broken before you guys got there. Because I don't even know where I could go buy one of those things if I needed to.
There's a good Kirby Enthusiasm episode from last season about that same thing.
Oh yeah. The torn screens, the all sorts of stuff. I want you to just document everything and take
damaged
photos
plants.
Like damaged plants.
Oh yeah.
But the thing you want to have in your head, and you want them to have in their head, is I don't know what is going to be an issue on this job. Something is going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Right. Let's assume something's going to be. I have no idea what it's going to be. It's going to be the most random thing that we didn't even think about. And so just take photos of everything. And so like we did in our inspection, if we're taking overlapping elevation photos, everything's in the photo. I don't have to worry about it. If I see something like that broken frog, I may take a close-up photo of that. But for the most part, I'm just running around photo. Everything's covered. And now we can go take photos of the material. So this is, we've got our stack in the driveway or on top of the roof. Let's take photos of it. Did they bring the right number of pipe boots? Did they bring the right number of shingles? Did they, is some of this damaged from the forklift before we ever even got started? I want to know it now, because if I go tell my supplier at 4:00, they're going to go, no, that was you.
Yeah.
And also we can deal with these things. I know that they checked the material because they took photos of the material. And then I want you to set up all the protection, and I want you to take another lap around the house. Show me that you took photos of all the protection. So a lot of this is on the front end. I don't really care so much about taking the shingles off, right? The proof is in the pudding on that. That's going to be obvious that thing did happen. I do want to see the bare deck, right? So once that deck is completely bare, take photos of all of it. I do want to take photos of the flashings showing that they are damaged after we took the roof off, because we're going to replace them with new, and I want to get paid for replacing them with new. Yep. So show the photos of the damaged stuff, show the photos of the new stuff as it's put in. So if we have all the decking, we can see, hey, were there any decking issues that needed to be addressed? If they're taking photos of it, again, it's kind of a mental step to know, all right, we did actually check the decking. And usually that's not usually one of the biggest issues. If they see bad decking, usually they want to get paid for it, and they'll replace that bad decking. But we can also go back and look later if we're having some kind of issue with the decking not laying down flat. Let's look at our photos of it. We've got it.
Yep.
So taking photos, if they do encounter decking issues, that's your change orders you're talking about. If they do encounter multiple layers, that's a change order, not as big of a deal to me, as the decking. But those are the things that have to be dealt with right away. And I encourage people. I know, most contractors that I work with subcontract their crews. They pay them a standard rate for whatever it is. Bring your guys in on paying them for taking photos. I give them an extra $100 if they got all 10 that I needed and all 50, at least 50 photos.
Nice.
Right. I'd also ding them $100 if they didn't.
And have that in your contracts.
Yeah. Have that in your subcontractor contracts. Once you explain it that way, they're going to be excited to make an extra $100 for snapping some photos.
Yeah.
But bring them in on change orders. Get them excited about, hey, if we've got a redeck, here's what I need to be looking for. Here's the documentation that I need. I'll get it paid for, and you guys are going to make, extra good money on this one.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of, and I know this isn't necessarily inspections tying in with the sales side of it, but, getting into this aspect of it, taking photos of the completed job, taking photos of the clean site.
It makes a huge difference. Those before and afters. We're doing our Rise tour right now. One of our talks is about being social proof, and people like seeing that, the before and after. That's something that's eye catching that will stop people in their tracks and stuff. Before we, because I love this. This is a nice bonus conversation that we just had. Who knows? Maybe part 3. But it is good stuff there. One of the ways that I made sure that I was taught how to be really thorough with my cleanup after was my dad would charge me a quarter for every single nail that he found. And he would make me scrape that. At 12 years old, I got it done. I was like a hawk out there because I wasn't going to let him find a nail. But so it makes a big difference.
So the way that I dealt with that is, and this is more for the homeowner than my crews. I don't want to penalize them because there's 10,000 nails. They're going to miss some, right? Like, I worked with some really good crews, and so they were doing their best as they could, but there's still issues. Is I would tell the customer, hey, if you find extra nails, we're going to do our best. We're going to go around here. I'm going to go around here. Sometimes some get missed. I'll make a deal with you right now. If you find any nails in your yard here, I want to buy them from you for $1 a piece.
Nice.
And so that customer, think about that customer who just got their new roof. The new roof looks nice, whatever. They're out there mowing, their kids are playing in the yard or whatever, and they find a nail. If I didn't make that deal with them, they're pissed off at me. That stupid, lazy idiot slob left these nails that are going to go through my kid's foot. Right. And hopefully none of that stuff happens anyway or whatever. But that's what they're thinking, even if something doesn't happen. They are just instantly, and I'm probably exaggerating how mad people are about it or whatever, but they're mad. Like, these guys left a mess here. Or they go, ooh, $1.
Yeah.
Ooh, $1. Right. And, I don't think I ever paid anybody more than like $20. And most everybody was like, oh, yeah, I found a few nails, but I picked them up. No, don't worry about it. And I'd be like, I'm going to send you a gift. Right.
Yeah.
You got 20 nails. I'll send you a gift for 20 nails, for $20 or whatever it is. And then now you are this hero. And they were excited every time that they found a nail in their yard.
Yeah. It brings it back to that professionalism, that accountability part of there, just continuing it throughout the process from beginning to the end of that sales process and installation process. So we got about 4 minutes and 30 seconds left. We got a couple questions in here. Bobby mentioned, actually, I think I might be able to answer this because it's three words for it. What's the best way to train your guys on how to correctly spot damage? It's called Building Experts Institute. Do you have some courses on that?
Yeah. So Matt Mulholland has done an entire course on identifying hail damage to asphalt shingled roofs. Nice. And I've done a lot of inspections and I learned a ton in there. There's diagrams. You can nerd out for, weeks on that. There's identifying wind damage to asphalt shingle roofs. We've got our inspection course aside from those. So getting really, really granular, no pun intended, into all the details about what that stuff does and what it looks like and what is hail, what isn't hail, what looks kind of like hail but isn't, what all the different things. We've got our hail cannon, we shoot stuff. We've got forensic engineers that we work with on this stuff. So I don't think that there's any better training out there. No. Most of what I found out there was sales guys trying to tell you how to do science stuff. Mm-hmm. So we've got science guys teaching you the science stuff.
That's perfect. Yeah, it's building. So you can email Matt as well at matt@buildingexperts.institute as well.
Yeah, and the website is buildingexperts.institute. So if you want to go there and check that out, we've got kind of videos for each one of those.
Perfect. And kind of on that note there, our last question is from Kevin. And he said, what's your recommendation on inspections that are 50-50 chance of getting approved by insurance? Do you inform the customer clearly that it's 50-50 and up for them to file the claim, or do you recommend that they file?
So I would say that there are going to be far, far fewer instances where you have a 50-50 confidence if you do a really, really robust inspection process. If you understand what is hail damage, what is not hail damage, if you've looked into the weather data, you've talked to the customers, you've talked to the neighborhood, right? Like you look at all the evidence, there's going to be few cases where you say, I'm not really sure what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And so, it may be that you're saying, I know that hail fell here, but their insurance company sucks and I don't know if they're going to pay for it. And what I would say there is if your documentation is right and you've built this case for them and you've let the customer know, hey, your insurance company kind of sucks. Sometimes they approve it right away. Sometimes we have to go to appraisal or we need to get a PA involved, or I've even seen customers have to go to litigation for them to actually pay it properly. If the damage is there, let them know, here's your recourse to get this paid properly. Cool. So I guess, I don't know how well that answers your 50-50, question, but I would say I want to get to a point where I say this is or is not, I've got a high level of confidence about what did or did not happen here. And then you can decide what you want to do based on the fact that you've been paying money to this company to replace it when you have this exact type of damage.
Goes back to that confidence and making sure you have that process in place. So that's great. But Matt, man, this was an amazing part two. Thank you so much for coming again. Again, he's Matt at buildingexperts.institute. You can reach him there. Thank you everyone for joining, for having the questions. And you can check this all out at roofr.com/masterclass. We'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks again, Matt.
Thanks.